Hi, and welcome back to WVU Extension Today. I'm your host, Joel Brown. They say April showers bring May flowers, but do you know what else April showers bring? An ingredient loved around the world. An ingredient served in Michelin star restaurants. An ingredient served in your kitchen. Ramps. We love ramps in West Virginia. Let's head over to Josh and get the stinky lowdown on how to find and harvest ramps.
Hi folks, Josh Peplowski here with WVU Extension Service. We're here today in beginning of April here in West Virginia, and we're gonna go in search of an Appalachian delicacy. We're gonna go looking for the wild ramp. So the wild ramp has a lot of history to it, and you know, we can find those ramps as far north as Quebec, Canada, as far south as Georgia, and as far west as Minnesota. So while we do think of it as a West Virginia delicacy, it is found throughout the east, and we're going to go out in the mountains today and see if we can't just find us a patch of ramps and learn a little bit about the wild ramp as we go along. So come join us today and we'll see what we can find. All right, so now we've made our way up into the woods here today in search of the wild ramp. So as you're looking out here for ramps, a lot of us all have our patches that we know about, where we go year after year after year. But if you're new to the ramp digging, when you are out there looking, you're looking for areas of the mountains that stay moist throughout the year. So a lot of times that's the northern side of the slopes. Down in the valleys where it's very deep, rich soil that we're looking for those ramps to grow and propagate. Here we're at elevation probably a little bit above 2,000 feet. The good thing about ramps in the springtime is it's one of the first plants that's going to come up. So as you can see, we don't have really any leaf area out right now. So when you are walking through the woods, you can spot a ramp patch quite a ways off. So it makes it a little easier this time of year to find that ramp patch. So we're going to make our way out around the mountain here, and I believe we'll probably come up on some here in just a bit. All right, so now you can see we've come upon a patch here. You can see this one here. I don't know if you can make out some of the ones up along the hill. There's quite a few on along as we go. A lot of these are what we would consider smaller patches. You know, you will come across areas in West Virginia where the whole hillside is nothing but ramps. So when we're talking about ramps, there's actually two different species that we'll find here in West Virginia. So scientifically, Allium trichocum and then Allium burdickii. So what we consider the common ramp is that Allium trichocum, and so what you'll see there with that is 2 to 3 leaves that normally will emerge, and then we'll have this red stem to that. So the other ramp, or a common name for that, is a narrow leaf ramp, or also a white ramp. So it doesn't have that pigmentation to the stem like our common ramp that we have here, the Allium trichocum. So like we said, you can see we're in this patch here. The way these ramps propagate most of the time is obviously through seed, but also through budding. So that ramp is in the lily family. So those bulbs will multiply, and so you'll find them in bunches of 5 to 7. Those roots are normally fairly deep rooted, so 3-4 inches, sometimes 5 inches. We need that good deep rich, moist soil for those ramps to take off and propagate. So, you know, when we talk about ramps and propagation and harvesting, so ramps actually have a pretty long life cycle. So when we produce a seed, these ramps will, you know, are the first plants that come up in the spring. They'll grab hold of that energy, that sunlight that's there where we don't have any tree canopy out. Once that tree canopy comes out and we start losing light intensity down here on the forest floor, those leaves will die off and they're going to put up a flower. So it'll be a leafless stalk. That flower will come up. It's a white flower. And it'll set seed here this fall. So we can come back here to this patch and you'll find seed here in August. The thing about that seed is it has two dormancies. So it takes a warm, moist period to break one part of that seed dormancy, and then it takes a cold period to break the other part of the dormancy. So some seeds may sit here for as long as 18 months prior to actual germination. So from that seed, we're looking at 6 to 18 months for a new seedling to come up. And then once that seedling comes up, we're looking at 5 years before it's going to be mature enough to actually produce seed itself. So that one ramp can take anywhere from 5 to 7 years to actually become mature and to produce its own seed. So we need to think about that in sustainability and going in and harvesting these patches. You don't want to, you know, harvest a patch when you go into it and you see somebody else has harvested that patch. It's probably best to leave that patch alone, go on to a new patch that's been untouched. When we do go into a patch, we probably only want to harvest between 5 and 10% if that's what we're looking at. Don't want to harvest any more than that because we can go in and really damage and affect the lifespan of that ramp patch there. We're gonna dig a few ramps here to show you things you need to think about when you are out there. We've got our little shovel here. You can have a little trowel. You really don't want to take a big shovel out there. With a large shovel, you're gonna go out there, you're gonna tear up a lot of soil. You have a good chance that you're gonna ruin or damage some of the root structure of the surrounding ramps. This patch is a little bit, it's not quite as thick as what you may see sometimes, so we'll have an easy time of getting in here and digging a few. If you look in here amongst the patch, you can see a few immature ramp seedlings that are probably a year or two old. So we do want to make sure that we keep those safe for future harvests. But we're going to go in, knock away the leaf matter, dig along the base, and we want to get up underneath the root of that ramp. And sometimes you got to dig around. There may be a few tree roots that you have to contend with, and we're going to pop those up out of the soil there. And there we go. So here within this, we've got 3 ramps we pulled out of there. You can see how deeply rooted those were. When you are out there digging ramps, pretty much every part of that ramp is edible. So we can eat the leaves, the stems, the root, that bulb, obviously. That's where that more intense flavor is going to be. These ramps will intensify in flavor as the season goes along. So sometimes people like an early ramp that doesn't have quite as much strong garlic, onion flavor to it, while others will eat them throughout the season. So once you do dig that ramp, we want to be sure to push that soil back down wherever you did dig it. Put that leaf matter back over top of where that bare soil is. We don't want to leave any bare soil for any type of invasive weeds or anything else to take root. We want those ramps to be what's growing there next year when we come back. So those are things to think about when you do go out and you are harvesting. This isn't something, it's not like, you know, planting your onions in your garden that is going to come back year after year after year. You can over harvest a ramp patch and it'll disappear. So we don't want that to happen. So we want to have those things in our minds when we are going out and harvesting ramps here in the springtime.
We've harvested ramps, and we'll learn a little bit more about what we can make with them here in a little bit. But first, we go to some traditional entertainment. Let's learn about Highland dancing from the West Virginia Highland Dancers.
There are quite a few people with Scottish heritage in this area, and it's been said that a lot of Scots settled here because it looks so much like Scotland. Our group actually started around 30 years ago with just a few of us who happened to have parents in the West Virginia Highlander band. We took lessons in Pittsburgh from Wendy Fennell, and then when I was 17, I was able to get my teaching certification, and the group was able to really grow here. So now we have dancers from all over Randolph County and actually all over the state now that we're offering online lessons. So all of these dancers are wearing traditional tartan, but there are two different costumes that you'll see here. One is the kilt outfit. And this was traditionally, it used to just be worn by men, and now women also wear the kilts, and we wear very bright colors these days, which you did not used to see in Scotland a long time ago. We also have the aboyan outfit, which was traditionally a lady's outfit. Still is, the men do not wear the aboyans, but men and women both compete in all of the dances these days. It used to be that only men competed in Highland dancing and they wore the kilts, but now everybody competes together.
I'm Gabby. I'm a student of Katie Dillon's, and I've been going to the West Virginia Highland Dancer Group for over 6 years now. And I recently became an instructor, so I teach my own classes. I'm also going to Davis and Elkins College, where they offer a scholarship for Highland dancers, and I'm a part of their group, so I get to perform quite a bit with them.
We love traveling country to compete, but we also really love performing and sharing Highland dancing with others in our local community.
Well, we've harvested ramps. And then we've done some Highland dancing. So by now, we're hungry. We've worked up a big appetite. Let's head over to Hannah Fincham and learn some ramp recipes that we can make at home.
Hello! Welcome to Extension's Kitchen. My name is Hannah Fincham and I work for the West Virginia University Extension Service in Randolph County, and I'm so excited to be here with you today to talk about one of West Virginia's famous spring tonics, which is the ramp. And you can see my ramps over here are pretty soiled because my husband just dug them, and that's kind of what they look like when they come out of the ground. So the first thing that we're gonna do when we cook with ramps is we have to clean them. And sometimes that can be a pain and it can take a long time, but the end product is well worth it. So let's go over to the sink and I'll show you how to clean up these ramps to make them edible. Now the first thing that we're gonna do when we get to our cleaning of our ramps is to make sure that we have a clean sink, and we're gonna turn on just a dribble of cold water. As with any vegetable, we want to be using cold water and not hot. So you can see we've got a root here and we've got a lot of soil that's still left on the bulb, but we have kind of, just like an onion, we have an outer layer that needs peeled off. So we're gonna do that first. And then look, we have a wonderful, we can see right where to cut. So we just use a small paring knife, and we don't wanna cut too much of the bulb away because we want that. So now we have a nice ramp that we're gonna use all of this ramp. But when we're cleaning ramps, they need multiple washings. So this is just kind of the initial first washing of our ramp, and now we have a beautiful ramp. Now I am going to continue to do this. This amount of ramps might take me about 10 minutes. So now we are at the point where we have partially cleaned ramps. We've gotten the roots taken off and most of the large clumps of soil. So we've got some pretty ramps, but they still need a second cleaning. And then we have our scraps. If you want to, you can save the roots and try to regenerate the ramp. Just like a green onion from kitchen scraps, you can replant the root, but they will not come up immediately. You would maybe in 3 to 5 years, if you planted a whole bunch, you'd be able to harvest some, because ramps do take quite some time. So we're gonna clean out our sink real well here. So we can put just a few things down a garbage disposal if you have one. If not, make sure you get it all out of your sink. And we're gonna use our cold water again. I'm gonna move this out of the way, and I'm gonna put down a clean towel. So I'm gonna put this clean towel right here. Might turn that down a little bit. As again, we're using cold water, because hot water can actually infuse bacteria into our vegetables, so we want to use cold water. And on these ramps, we need to split apart the nice leaves and make sure that we get all that. So you can see I got some leftover soil there on my hands just from in between the leaves. We want to make sure that we're getting out all of that. And then when that's done, these are ready to go. Now, before we cook our ramps, we want to make sure that we wash our hands in nice warm water with suds and soap. I'm gonna get some more there. So all around, in between our fingers. Even when we're cooking for ourselves, we want to make sure that we wash our hands very nice. All right, now let's cook these things. All right, now we have our freshly cleaned ramps that now we want to cook with. They smell so good and they're so pretty. And this big stack of ramps, you might be thinking, wow, Hannah, that's a lot of ramps. But it will cook down, and this may feed a family of 4 if it's just used as a side dish as opposed to a garnish. So the way that I like to cook my ramps, just plain ramps, to really give us the flavor of the ramp, is to saute them. And I have a pan here, but the first thing that I like to do is fry a tiny little bit of bacon. Now I only have 3 slices of bacon here, and I'm going to cut it in half, and then I'm gonna cut it in small pieces, and I'm gonna put this, just my small pieces, into my skillet. If you have cast iron, that is the best way to cook some ramps. Excellent. All right, so I'm making small pieces of bacon here. And I'm gonna crumble that in, I'm gonna kind of crumble it all around in my skillet here, which is not on, so I'm still touching it. Okay, so now I've got that in there, but now I need to go wash my hands again because I was touching raw bacon. So I'm gonna take this to the sink and go wash my hands. All right, now that my hands are clean, I am going to put my crumbled up bacon onto a nice, I'm gonna move my towel out of the way, onto a big burner, and I'm gonna turn it on probably about medium. And I can use a wooden spatula or spoon, anything like that to kind of move it around, but it'll take just a few minutes to do that. So we're gonna have small pieces of bacon, and then we're going to cut up our ramps. So I try to just get a bunch of ramps and line them all up nicely. So there we go. So we've kind of got the bulbs nice and even, and then the leaf part too. So we use the whole ramp. The leaf part is really tasty. It's all pretty pungent. The bulb is going to be a little bit more pungent than the leaf. So if you don't like a really strong ramp flavor, you can use just the leaves, but make sure you don't throw the bulbs away. Do find something to do with them. They make awesome if you saute them. You can use ramps in place of any onion. So if your favorite dish calls for an onion, you can use ramps in its place. In fact, my favorite ramp dish is actually potato soup with ramps instead of onions, because potatoes and ramps pair very well, and it's so tasty. So we can hear my bacon kind of starting to sizzle here. I'm gonna chop up the bulbs finely. I'm gonna chop off the bulbs smaller, but then you'll see I'm gonna chop the leaves a little bit bigger. So I've got my good chef's knife here, and I'm gonna chop the bulbs in not really big. And then I'm gonna chop the leaves in bigger, because they wilt up really nicely. We like to put in the bulbs a little bit before, because they are we wanna saute them and get them soft, because it doesn't take as long for the greens to get soft. So we can even saute the bulbs with our bacon in here. And as I said, this would be a gorgeous start to an egg dish, a potato dish. Pork is wonderful with ramps. Okay, gonna keep that going. I'm gonna get some more ramps here. So ramps are actually known as the spring tonic because it's the first sign of green that we see in the spring. So we want to get our bacon looking a little cooked, but not completely cooked, because we don't want it to be overdone or burnt when we have our leaves in there. The leaves don't take long, but we still turn it down just a little bit. It's on medium, but it seems to be. All right, that is looking perfect for adding in our leaves. So we're just gonna take all of our leaves here. There we go. Now we're gonna turn it down. But this is a big burner, so I'm gonna turn it on low. I'm actually going to put a lid on it to kind of let them steam a little bit, so it just wilts the ramp leaf instead of cooking it. Okay, after just a couple minutes, we might want to take the lid off and stir it around. And I could easily have added more greens in there. In fact, I think I might. Okay. So we can put our lid back on. Give it a couple more minutes, and we should be ready to go to eat these plain or to put on as a garnish. So all those ramps that I had, they cooked down so much, so we need a lot of ramps if we're just gonna eat them, but as a garnish, this is gonna be great. So I'm gonna turn this off, and I actually have over here a piece of steak with blue cheese and sauteed ramps on top, and I have a baked potato. So I'm gonna cut my baked potato here. And I am going to garnish this with some beautiful ramps and bacon. And then I'm gonna put some on the side too, because we just love sauteed and fried ramps at our house. Now that, to me, is the perfect ramp dinner. Thank you so much for joining me. Whether you are a pro at harvesting, cleaning, and cooking ramps, or this was something new for you, I'm so glad you joined us to celebrate the West Virginia ramp.
Wow, what a packed day we've had. We've harvested ramps, we've learned to Highland dance, and then we cooked some ramps. Do you have a favorite ramp recipe? Mine? Breakfast ramp fried rice. It's delicious. Well, we hope we'll see you next time here on WVU Extension Today. Enjoy yourself, have a great spring, and go ramp hunting. See you next time.